Hi, my name is Jordan. Welcome to Gamers G. Today I'm doing my top 10 Disney villains that I would like to be featured in Disney Villainous. And the reason I say Disney Villainous because Disney Villainous has released new Disney villains frequently in the expansions or the expandalones, and I just thought I would come up with my list. And I have my Disney Villain shirt here, which has most villains that have featured in Disney Villainous, and I just thought like I would do, and it is my birthday month, so that's why I want to do this list, because Disney Villainous has been one of my favorite games of all time, and I know that there's still some Disney villains that have not been featured in Disney Villainous, but I would love to see it come to in the future expansions or expandalones. But without further ado, let's get to the list. So coming at number 10 is Hans from Frozen, and I know what you guys are thinking. He's a surprise villain. Would he actually count? And I'm like, so like I know Kevin has played Kingdom Hearts 3, and they did count him as an actual villain. So I'm not gonna. That's a different thing. But I'm just surprised with how popular Frozen has been over the past 10 years, and Ravensburger hasn't featured Hans, but I just would say don't rush this character. That's why he's number 10 on my list, because I know there's other villains that I would think should be a top priority, in my opinion, for the future expansions. But I'm just again, I'm just surprised on how he hasn't been featured in the expansions yet. But I'm pretty sure they're still trying to figure out what his objective would be and go from there. But yeah, that's why he's on the bottom of my list. But yeah, number 10, Hans from Frozen. So coming at number 9 is Madame Medusa from The Rescuers, and I was literally stuck between her and McLeod from Rescuers Down Under, just because those two villains are just very scary villains. And I know I wasn't afraid of them when I was a kid, but I know pretty sure many people were, because they kidnap children, so of course they're pretty scary. But and I picked this villain specifically because The Rescuers is one of my mom's favorite Disney movies, and I know she loves that movie, and I'm pretty sure if they released Medusa as one of the villains featured in the next expansion or expandalone in Disney Villainous, she would try to play as her, even though she'll be like, okay, Kevin Jordan, when would you try this character? Because I know my mom has done that, but sometimes my sister and my dad has done it. Same thing, but by knowing my dad, he would still give it a try either way. But yeah, I'm just glad that Ravensburger has featured villains from underrated Disney films, so that's why I have her on my list. But yeah, Madame Medusa from The Rescuers. Speaking of underrated villains from underrated films, my number 8 is Lyle Rourke from Atlantis. And I honestly love Atlantis. It's one of my favorite underrated Disney movies, and I'm also surprised that it hasn't been featured in Disney Villains yet. I know that it's just very underrated, and I think many people should watch the movie. And I'm trying to figure out his objective, but most likely I just know from watching the movie, I'm like, okay, he wants to harm Atlantis, so that'll be his objective. But I know it's like I already know his allies would be and who would the heroes would be. But yeah, I'm surprised that he hasn't been featured in Disney Villainous yet. And I just love Atlantis, and I know Kevin and I will probably fight on who would play this character if he's ever featured in a next expandalone or expansion to Disney Villainous, because we both love Atlantis. So yeah, I am just surprised that he hasn't been featured in Disney Villainous yet. But number 8, Lyle Rourke from the Atlantis. Number 7 is Sid from Toy Story. I know that Lotso has already been featured in Disney Villainous, but I know Toy Story had other villains, like Sid was the first one, so I was like surprised that they haven't picked him. But I know Lotso was a more popular Disney villain character from Toy Story, so I don't blame him for choosing him. But I just think it would be very interesting to see toys after versus a kid in Disney Villainous. So that's what kind of got me curious, like, how are they going to do that? Because Lasso's a toy, of course. All the Toy Story characters are, it's like toys versus toy kind of thing, but I know that it'll be very interesting to see what Sid's ally would be, because I don't think he would have an ally other than his dog, as far as I know, but it would be very interesting to see Sid in Disney Villainous. I know that they brought him out for Halloween events in Disney's California Adventure recently, which was really cool to see on video, but of course, Kevin and I have never been to a Halloween event in Disneyland, so we will hopefully one day in the next few years, but we're not in no rush to do that anyway. But I still think it's cool that they've brought out Sid anyway, and the guys who played the character in the parks did a very good job playing as him by trying to figure out how they did his braces, but that's a whole different thing. But I just think it'll be nice that they featured a first Toy Story, like a first Pixar villain to appear in Disney Villainous. But anyways, my number 7, Sid from Toy Story. Coming at number 6 is Edgar from the Aristocats, and he's just a very funny villain and he's also from an underrated Disney movie, The Aristocats, and it's also one of my favorites and one of my mom's favorites, so that's why I put him on the list. But I just think it'll be interesting to see him featured in Disney Villainous, because, like I said, they've been bringing out a lot of villains from underrated Disney films, which I appreciate, and he hasn't yet, but I really would like to see that. But I feel like he wouldn't have, I don't know how they would bring him into Disney Villainous, because I don't think he has any allies other than, like, his ego, but I don't know. That one's going to be really challenging. I'm pretty sure it's very challenging for Ravensburger to bring out Edgar from the Aristocats, but I just think it will be very interesting to see, like, what would his objective would be very obvious, but I don't know how he would have allies, because he had none in the movie, so that'll be very interesting. So either way, number 6, Edgar from the Aristocats. So we're coming at my top 5 Disney villains I would like to see in Disney Villainous, and number 5 is Hopper from A Bug's Life. Yeah, I think A Bug's Life is a very underrated Disney Disney Pixar movie, just because I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Like, I know, yeah, it was probably a hit, but not a lot of people talk about it. I know that I grew up watching A Bug's Life, and boy, Hopper was a scary villain when I was a kid, and that kind of made me not like grasshoppers for some reason. But I just think it would be very interesting to see him, because I know that Disney has brought out a lot of Pixar villains into Disney Villainous, and I just think it'll be interesting to see more of that in future expansions or expandalones for Disney Villainous. And I just think it'll be very interesting to see Hopper and, like, what would the artwork look like, or, like, obviously he has a bunch of allies, but his objective would be obvious. But it will be very interesting to see him in an expansion, hopefully. But I just think it'll be very fun to play him, just because he's just that bad of a bad guy, and yeah, I'm just surprised that he hasn't been featured in Disney Villainous yet. And yeah, I do enjoy A Bug's Life, even though it's really hard to rank my Pixar and Disney Pixar movies that I like, because I like so many, and I know that one I do watch often because I grew up watching it, and it's a really good film. And yeah, I'm just still surprised that Hopper has not been featured. But anyways, before I get carried away, my number 5 is Hopper from A Bug's Life. Coming at number 4 is Long John Silver from Treasure Planet. Yes, I love Treasure Planet. I honestly love it since Disney brought it out. Like, I've watched that since I was a kid, and I thought it's a very awesome version of Treasure Island, and another underrated Disney movie in my personal opinion. And I know Kevin loves that film as well, and, like, we both share a love for Atlantis and Treasure Planet, and I know this is going to be one of the villains if they feature this in future expandalones. Kevin and I will argue who will play that villain because we just love Long John Silver that much. Yeah, Kevin's pointing at himself, and I'm like, oh, we'll see. And, but yeah, I just know that Treasure Island is a really awesome classic story, and I know Long John Silver has been one of my favorite villains since I've seen different versions of Treasure Island, because I know I've seen Treasure Planet and Muppets Treasure Island most of the time when I growing up, but I also read the books when I was when I was in middle school, and I loved the story. So yeah, I am just surprised that he has not been featured in Disney villains, and he would be my top pick. I don't know if he would be in Kevin's top 5 pick if he ever does a list like this, but he's in my top 5. So yeah, number 4, Long John Silver from Treasure Planet. Coming at number 3 is Randall from Monsters, Inc. and Monsters University. I know he's not technically a main villain in Monsters University, but I still say with Monsters, Inc., he has been my favorite villain. I mean, he scared me when I was a kid. Like, I kept telling my parents to check my closet to see if he's there or not. I'm just... That character did scare me when I was a kid, but Monsters, Inc. has always been one of my favorite Pixar movies when I was a kid. It's still in my top 5 favorite Disney Pixar movies, and I'm just surprised that he has not been featured. And like I said about Hopper, after they introduced Lotso and Syndrome in the one expansion, Bigger and Better, I'm like, they need to bring more Pixar villains, because they seem to be fun to play as, and I know that if I had to pick a villain that I hope they bring out is Randall. That's my top, one of the top villains that I would like featured in Disney Villainous, just because he scared me when I was a kid, but he's also would sound like a fun villain to play as. So yeah, I'm just hoping in the future they do feature him, because it will be very interesting to play him. But yeah, Randall from Monsters, Inc. is my number 3. So my number 2 Disney villain that I want to be featured in Disney Villainous is Captain Gantu from Lilo and Stitch. And this one would be very interesting because I know he's been the main villain in the movies, in the TV shows, and the sequels. Well, not the second Lilo and Stitch movie, but like Leroy and Stitch, he was the main villain. I kept asking Kevin, who's really the main villain in Lilo and Stitch? Was it Gantu or was it Hamsterville? Because I know he was more of a main villain in the first movie, and he said Gantu is mostly the villain, not Hamsterville is just an add-on. So I'm like, okay, he's more of a villain than just a sidekick. And I would think it would be very interesting if they added characters from the TV shows as well, like the Experiments and Stitch's cousins and all that, just because it'll be very interesting. But I don't know if they would go that far with this character. I think they would just mostly focus the first movie where he captures Stitch. That's pretty much would be his objective, would be if he's featured in future Disney Villainous expansions. But either way, he's like literally from one of my top 5 favorite Disney movies, and I'm just surprised that they haven't featured him yet. And I love Lilo and Stitch, and I just know that there probably will be a card called Cute and Fluffy just from Stitch. I just know that they will probably feature that in the Heroes deck. But yeah, either way, my number 2 is Gantu from Lilo and Stitch. So my number 1 Disney villains I want to be featured in Disney Villainous. Oh my gosh, I know I've been rambling throughout the whole video. I'm so sorry. I just get overexcited and I mumble or I stutter sometimes. But my number 1 villain that I want to be featured in Disney Villainous is Stinky Pete the Prospector from Toy Story 2. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you featuring 2 villains from 2 different Toy Story films? Toy Story has been one of my favorite Disney Pixar. It's been my number 1 favorite Disney Pixar film since I was a kid, and it has not been removed on my number 1 spot because I grew up watching Toy Story and Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 2 is my favorite out of the Toy Story films. So I just would like to see Stinky Pete's objective. I know it was probably kind of obvious. I know he was like a surprise villain, but at the same time, I kind of knew there's a villain somewhere. I know many people thought like, oh, ow, what, the chicken would be the villain, but I was like, no, I feel like a prospector, Stinky Pete would be one. So yeah, I'm just really would love to play as him, and I know I got to play Lotso, and I won as Lotso when Kevin and I first played that expansion. It was a lot of fun playing Lotso, but I would like to see what playing Stinky Pete would be like in a future expand along of Disney Villainous. And yeah, he's my number one that I would like to see, just because he's from my favorite Toy Story movie, and I just would love to see him featured in future expand along. So yeah, my number one villain that I would like to feature, hopefully feature in future Disney Villainous games, would be Stinky Pete the Prospector from Toy Story 2. So that is all for my top 10 Disney villains that I would like to feature in Disney Villainous. This is my personal opinion. I know there's other Disney villains out there, but if you have some top Disney villains that you would like to feature in future Disney villains, let us know in the comments down below, and we would chit-chat about that. And also, if you want Kevin to do his list of Disney villains that he want to be featured in future Disney Villainous game, also let us know in the comments down below, and we'll have him do his own list as well. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be notified for top 10 lists just like this, and be on the lookout for the next top 10s list. But until then, thanks for the views.